across the West Midlands. We are talking about it here on the West Midlands Football Podcast. I'm Ben Ellis here, joined by Gavin Longhorn as we were last week, and somebody from outside of the sphere of the West Midlands, but as a regular contributor to the Box to Box podcast, Dom Phillips has joined us as well. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening. Good result for myself and yourself yesterday, Ben.
Yep, we'll talk all about that. First of all, welcoming Dom. Viewers in the Midlands might not be too familiar. Of course, a Newcastle fan, Dom, but we won't hold that against you.
I'm afraid I'm not a Newcastle fan, as you can probably tell by my voice. I am not from the Geordie area. I was watching the exact same...
Have I read that wrong? Have I read that wrong?
Yeah, you have. I was watching the exact same game that you were.
I was just about to say I'm very jealous of your vast array of riches, but obviously not.
We've got off to a really great start there. Anyway, rewind, start again. Of course, Dom Phillips is a Villa fan. I knew that deep down.
I just well deep down.
Yes, I'm a Villa fan. I should be able to spot one because we are of the same breed. Gav's a Wolves fan, yes, as we talked about on the programme last week. So we're going to look back at the West Midlands action. And we're going to start at Villa Park, actually. We're going to cover the two games against Manchester United, since obviously the Midlands Football Podcast was last on the air. Dom, I'll come to you. I mean, I thought Villa were the better side across both games.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I'd say for probably the majority of the first game, and even more of a majority of the second game, we've outplayed United. We've taken the game to them. We've been on the front foot. We've been really aggressive. Good with the ball, making chances. Scoring goals. It's just that for those moments where we aren't on top, we just look really, really leaky at the back and quite passive. And that's when you see mistakes from Emi Martinez, which is a shame to see. But the other goals that we conceded, the one at Old Trafford, and then Bruno's goal where Sanson gives it away. It's a massive shame, but I think we've been really good, and I think with the squad strength, with the likes of Coutinho and Dini, I think there's we're really pushing up now properly, and the ambition and the quality that we're showing on and off the pitch is really refreshing, to be honest.
Yeah, it just seems to be going up a level, doesn't it? From what we've seen. I mean, always kind of plucky and giving it their best, and kind of like the Dean Smith era. But that's been proven that isn't good enough for the level that Villa want to get to, and it's Steven Gerrard who's attracting the level of player that's going to take Villa forward, going on beyond here. Luca Digne said, "I've come for the manager, Philip Coutinho. I know him; he's my mate, and I've come to play for him." And there probably will be in the next 2 weeks or so more additions to the squad. But I think it's also interesting, Dom, that players are going to be allowed to leave as well.
Yeah.
From the Dean Smith era, Anwar El Ghazi being the example, going on loan to Everton as part of the Digne deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what new managers do. They always put their stamp on the squad, and especially someone who, don't know what he's really like as a manager, because all that goes on behind closed doors. He gives off a very, the atmosphere, the vibe of being quite, ruthless and quite. He wants things done his own way, and it's his way or the higher way, done the right way. And I think it's really good that he is putting his own stamp on the squad. And it's sad to see a promotion hero like Anwar El Ghazi leave. He scored some important goals the first year he come up as well. But I think, him, Trezeguet, replacing Matt Targett as, the primary left-back in Luca Digne, even though Matt Targett was very well liked by Dean Smith. He's just great. I think he's getting a feel for the squad, and he's made his own stamp. But I think other players who are already here are going to be key stalwarts. Like, he loves John McGinn, he loves Jacob Ramsey, and I actually think, the recent performances of Emi Buendia were making Gerrard say, I can see why they spent, upwards of 35 million on him, because I thought he was brilliant in both games, actually.
Gal, I don't know what you saw of the Villa United game. I presume you were coming back from Molineux while the game was playing. But I don't know what you saw of the highlights or whatever. And I'll come to both of you on this. But I thought yesterday was Buendia's best game for Villa.
Yes. obviously, it was travelling back to Tamworth yesterday because I have to travel from Tamworth to Wolverhampton for the home game. So watched the second half in its full entirety. Didn't see this first half. Heard about the mistake. I think you can give him that one because I think he's been an absolute beast. Probably one of the top 2 or 3 keepers in that league, in my opinion, really, since he's gone to Villa. So you can let him off with that one. I think based on the second half and what I watched, the Villa more than earned those 2 goals, really. I mean, it was a case of Gerrard gambled a little bit, bringing Coutinho on when they were 2-0 down. He came on and he showed the reason why I think Gerrard's brought him there. It's a good point that we spoke about last week as well, Ben. Dom touched on it a little bit there as well. I think that's the Gerrard touch that you're going to have as well with attracting these types of players coming in. Al Ghazi hasn't been a bad player for Villa at all, but I think it's all about that moving on to the next step. And we've saw it in the past as well with other teams where I think it's key to improve while you're doing well as well, not while you're in a bad run of form, if that makes any sense. Game on Monday night was very frustrating on a Villa point of view. It was from a neutral point of view as well, really. I mean, we talk about it a lot. We do a lot seeing Man United not win or lose. But I mean, from a purely neutral point of view, the Villa were the better team on Monday night as well. It was just a very frustrating day at the office for them. I think you can take that one really because even though we all love a cup run, it's a bonus game at the end of the day, really, isn't it? I think the leagues where you've got to look to kick on a bit now this season with Gerrard, the higher you finish, the better it's going to be to attract players in the coming window in the summer as well. And as you said, building out performance yesterday as well. I think he could be a very interesting 2 weeks for Aston Villa going into the end of the window. But touching on that as well yesterday, I thought it was, even though he didn't really do a lot apart from the 2 goals, he that can be very promising going forward as well. I mean, with Coutinho, a lot of the work that he'd done for the first goal got underplayed because he scored that second goal as well. I think that little touch and run off the ball and then the involvement with Jacob Ramsey for the first goal was very impressive. And that's why he brought the goal into place. I think he's going to do stuff like that. It's going to score you goals this season if he can rekindle a bit of that form that he had when he was at Liverpool and getting him up to match fitness as well. Obviously, coming in and not having much game time this season.
That level of footwork, Dom, from Coutinho, tight in the box, defenders around him, still managing to get the ball to Jacob Ramsey to score his first goal at Villa Park. That's what we're talking about in terms of levels, in terms of quality. That's what Villa haven't had. Even with Jack Grealish, to be honest, because even in the close control of Jack Grealish would have been looking to have been clipped and go down. That wasn't the thought of Philip Coutinho at all. It was to get the ball to a teammate where they could score a goal, and I think that was noticeable for me on Saturday.
No, I agree. I said this after the game. I said what impressed me most about the second half of that game is that we had a group of players who were attacking players who could control the ball in the final third and do technical things, but they also kept the ball. I thought the 4 that did that the best were Felipe Coutinho when he came on, who I think when his match fit is going to be huge for us. Jacob Ramsey, who absolutely ran the second half, Sky Man of the match, goal and assist, absolutely unbelievable player. Emery Buendia, as I said, had his best game. You said he had his best game in claret and blue, and I completely agree with your assessment there. And also, the one who should get more praise is Carney Chukwuemeka, 18-year-old kid who comes on and he looks absolutely at home in the Premier League. Those 4 players have so much just technical skill and little 1-2s and little dinks, and it's just so entertaining to watch, and it's so difficult to defend against, and that's why it worked so well. And as you say, I just really don't think we've seen that level of quality at Villa in so long. And I think, looking forward in January, if we can get players like that who are just top level, have got top quality in that defensive midfield position, get a couple of centre halves in, probably I think Robin Olsen is rumoured to be coming in as a bit of goalkeeping backup because Jed Steer might be leaving, or indeed we need one anyway. Either way, I just think it's a really promising sign for the future that this Villa team are doing things that, as a younger fan, I've never seen the Villa do in my lifetime. It's just such an exciting time to be a Villa fan. I think the sky's the limit, honestly, at the moment.
Do you think moving forward, and I'll get Gab's neutral view as well, Dom, do you think moving forward, in terms of the quality that Villa are going to look to sort of bring in, in this window and in the summer window as well. The elephant in the room, the big question that we haven't really had answered at any stage this season is, can Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings play together as a two up front? And they're trying to make it work. You don't sign Danny Ings for £30 million and not play him. It's quite simple. And if you're going to create chances, he will be the one that's going to score the goal. So where does Ollie Watkins fit into this? Does he play wide on the left? Does he play just off of a Danny Ings? Or do you just rotate the two of them? You just stick one up front and then, managers complain about the amount of games they have to play these days, which is quite frankly ridiculous, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Do you see that, they paid the money for Ings, they've got the proven goal scorer, they've got the quality of Buendia and Coutinho, and as we said, Ramsey and Chukwuemeka and all that. Do you think there's going to be room for Ollie Watkins? We know Arsenal are sniffing around. Do you think Villa might just from a position of strength, just say, okay, Ollie, you're an Arsenal fan, you want to go there, we'll take the money?
I'm really, really conflicted on this. I think it's very easy to argue both sides as to which one you let go, and I do think there's one we let go. I do think that it's sort of the classic Villa curse. We've got two players competing for the same position who, if you put them together, would be world class. Ollie Watkins, his general play is some of the best in terms of strikers, best in the league. But his composure in the final third and his finishing let him down massively. If he had that kind of killer instinct that Danny Ings had, he would be playing for a club far better than Villa. And interestingly, I think tactically it's important because we play a 4-3-3. That's the way Gerrard plays. Or the way he plays one up top. Watkins and Ings aren't going to start together. They do start together with Watkins sort of playing off the left because it's quite narrow, but I don't think he looks comfortable there. And in terms of what I would say, when Watkins is at his worst, he still creates chances for the team, but he misses his own chances. Whereas when Ings is at his worst, he can ghost, which is what he has done for periods of games this season, and he's just invisible. He doesn't do much. You just don't really notice him, to be honest. But when Ings is at his best, he's just a brilliant player. But when Watkins at his best is a brilliant player, it's a really difficult conundrum. I think it's going to come down to who can they cash in on, and I think you're right with the Arsenal thing.
I think we'd be in better shape with having the two of them if we were in Europe, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, and then you can use that size of squad. Give you the example. West Ham are hitting the buffers now in the second half of the season, and it's not like we don't know. I said this at the start of the season. I was pilloried for it for saying West Ham haven't done enough in the transfer window. Oh, we're having a great season. Well, we remember the days of Martin O'Neill where we were going 100 miles an hour up until about March in Europe, and we hit the wall. And West Ham are going to hit the wall. Now, if you give the example of you can rotate Ings and you can rotate Watkins, and you can think about Thursday nights in Europe. Gav, you remember with Wolves' journey in Europe a couple of seasons ago and how sort of taxing that is. But we don't have that luxury at the moment. We've only got, now we're out of the FA Cup as well, we've only got 15, 16 Premier League games to go. And they've got to make a decision. I think Gerrard is strong enough to decide it's not going to work playing the two of them long term. But he's going to have to decide who it is.
I think the thing with Watkins as well is that, as Dom says, it can be a very conflicting, frustrating player. I mean, you think back at games last season where he played against Liverpool and he looked like he could have scored 6 or 7 that night. Well, you have times where he looks like he wouldn't hit a barn door, really. I don't think he's ever going to be a 20-goal season striker. I really don't. I think if you are ever going to find a way of getting those two to play with each other in the front two, I think he's going to have to do that number 10 role. I just don't see him being that focal point for Aston Villa. It's a nice problem to have because,
But you've got Buendia, you've got Coutinho now.
Yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about players like Jacob Ramsey. I think this is where you see where players are going to find them rubbing off of players like Coutinho, because we already spoke about it a little bit yesterday where Ramsey's got that understanding in training already only after a few days with Coutinho. I think they can learn things off of them. But as you say, it can either bring the best out of players or it can be a case of having to move them on. I mean, Buendia might be stepping his game up the past couple of games now because he's seen that Coutinho's come through the door. You take the price tag out of the equation, really. I think you've got to, and he's thinking, my players could be under pressure here in this team, and I've really got to start showing that potential that the scouts at Aston Villa showed him with putting the faith in me to bring me here. I personally, if you play devil's advocate now, and you get offered the money that you had for Ollie Watkins back, would you both take it as from an Aston Villa point of view? I think that's what you've got to think of sometimes. I think with the investment that you've made,
I think they'd want a bit more. I think they'd want. No, I think they'd want a bit more than what they paid.
Yeah, they want 50, probably, not 30.
Quite frankly, bear in mind, there would probably be a sell-on fee that would go to Brentford as well. Because that's what those deals are made of. Because they were taking Ollie Watkins from Brentford when they were in the Championship. So, I would go with Ings because he will get you the goals if you create the chances, and I think there's enough quality there to create the chances without Ollie Watkins. Lovely problem to have, and that's not to say that there's not going to be injuries and suspensions come the end of the season, but it.
I was just going to say that.
All they've got is the league. All they've got is the league.
It's a case sometimes of, sorry, Ben, do you think it's a case sometimes that it might be in the back of the manager's mind that it's not been as bad usually the past few seasons with Danny Ings, but there's still that quotation of injury prone over his head? I think that might be a little bit
possible.
As well. Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, the nice thing, Dom, and I'll come to you just finally on this in a second. The nice thing is to be in a transfer window and be active as a fan. We're not usually this active in a particularly a January transfer window, but we're not fretting over getting a striker in, and I think that tells its own story really. We're looking for the players to sort of move up a level and for Steven Gerrard to stamp his authority on this squad, and I think that's what we're seeing going forward, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, to put Gav's example of Watkins back, would you take 30 million for Danny Ings right now? Because I wouldn't take the price we paid for Ollie Watkins, but I would take it for Danny Ings because Danny Ings is getting older, has had a little bit of a history with injuries, he's got a few goals, but he hasn't set the world alight at Aston Villa. I know that it's had a lot of things to struggle with, and that's why him and Watkins have both not had great seasons by their own standards. I just think Ollie Watkins is younger, he's fresher, he does more for the team, and his pressing, his work rate is just brilliant. And Danny Ings is a fantastic striker. But I do think that if you create Watkins enough chances, he will score them. But I do definitely agree. I mean, the goal that I would point out, the goal against Brentford by Danny Ings, I don't think Ollie Watkins scores that. I don't think he finds a space, and I don't think he makes the finish. I think he puts it into the goalie's legs. I don't think he gets it far corner. So it's a really difficult conundrum. I think it's just going to be up to the manager, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah. Just one more thing before we leave Villa. Of course, going back to the cup tie on Monday, we're 3 years into having VAR in this country, and they still at Stockley Park do not seem to have their heads around the phrase "clear and obvious error." So, if it takes you 3 minutes and 36 seconds to spot an obvious error, you are in the wrong job.
It's not a case of this is the problem, Ben, and I've had this conversation with a few people. You could have all the technology in the world to make these decisions, but the majority of the officials that were making the mistakes before, due to human error, are still making these decisions.
I haven't got a problem with the technology.
Yeah,
I've not got a problem with the technology at all. The technology works fine. It worked fine in the World Cup in Russia in 2018. It worked fine in the Euros. It is the egos of English Premier League officials who think that they are bigger than the game, who think that all we've come to see is to watch them in the middle and talk about them at Stockley Park. They're hogging the limelight instead of making the correct decisions. And it needs to stop.
Spot on.
I think the majority of football fans won't disagree with you. They wouldn't disagree with you at all, Ben. I just think it's a case of, I think it has to be something that's got to be
it works fine.
Yeah. I think it's a case of, especially in this...
And it should not be in use at Premier League grounds in the FA Cup. Just because it's there doesn't mean it should be a level playing field, the FA Cup, regardless of where you are.
This is another thing to say. I spoke about this with someone as well yesterday, and I didn't realise until in the middle of the week. Apparently, it's a 10 grand cost to have VAR running in the cup ties, and they have to split it as £4 each, even whatever level or the team is at. So, with the greatest respect to Kidderminster, I don't think they're going to be paying £4 every cup tie at their home game or even away for VAR. It's just not going to happen. So I don't disagree with you with that. I think it has to be fair and consistent throughout the whole competition. It has to be over a case of all or not. FA's got to pay to have it at every ground, or it's got to be a blanket no for all grounds and all games in the cup.
Yeah, so just finishing off the Villa chat now. Everton away lunchtime on Saturday. The big news coming out of Goodison Park is Rafa Benitez no more. A toxic situation. Could have done with it lasting another week, if I'm honest. I'm quite fearing the bounce from that. More than likely, Duncan Ferguson will be in charge, at least for that game. Everton. The lads, they could probably talk on the Box to Box podcast nationally on Tuesday. But Everton's an odd one. It really is when you look at it. When you look at it from the outside, Carlo Ancelotti, even if he's got another job lined up at one of the so-called big boys, Carlo Ancelotti does not walk away if everything's okay at that football club.
No,
you've got a proven winner as your manager.
The grass isn't always greener, is it?
No, it just seems like I think that especially from what I'm picking up the last couple of months as well, I think there's a lot going on in the background that we're not privy to. It seems strange as well but obviously we've got to be impartial. We can't really influence what we're talking about. But from what I've read, early bookmakers odds at the moment, it's looking like it's going to be Roberto Martinez.
It is,
which I just really find strange. I don't get that appointment. I'd be slightly worried if I was an Everton fan as well, because I think if you look over your shoulder, there's a few teams that aren't too far away now, and I think there's a couple of teams that have got a couple of games in hand on them as well. So it'll be a case of you've definitely got to get it right. I think they've definitely got to get it right. Yeah.
They're in a survival fight, Everton. I'd make no qualms about it. They've been dire this season. I think as an Everton fan, I'd just be concerned. I think they're so badly run. I can't understand selling your best player or near your best player, Luca Digne, to 25 million for a direct rival because he fell out with the manager and then sacking the manager a week later. There's no planning. There's no foresight. Even with Marcel Brands, that sporting director, they basically let him do what he liked. And then they get rid of him, and it's just like there's been no improvement in who they've got in. Everton are a really badly run-owned club. I do think though it could be a bit of a banana peel for Villa, even though our future fixture run is looking quite favourable with the likes of Watford and Newcastle and even Southampton, who the Wolves obviously put away a couple of days ago. Everton's a difficult one because you've got I think in the Premier League every team's got a player like Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison, players like that who can just hurt you. So it won't be an easy game, especially if they're on the new manager bounce. Whether that's under Duncan Ferguson, who did very well as an interim previously, or obviously Roberto Martinez, who for all intents and purposes did have his Belgian team quite difficult to beat, and it's a bit of a backwards move, and it's a bit of a regressive move going back to someone he used to have. I think it could be a difficult game for Villa, but I'm confident, to be honest.
If it is to be Martinez, and obviously this is a bit of a tangent, and we'll move on. He failed miserably at Belgium. For me, with what he had, at his disposal, given plenty of opportunities. How many tournaments did they play under Martinez? 2 or 3? Yeah. That's we've talked in the past with England about the golden generation and sort of Sven's time and what have you. Belgium should have won something.
I agree.
And they got to a semi-final here and there, and then they choked when it came to the crunch.
He's a manager I've never really got. If I'm going to be honest with you, Ben, I've never got it when he was at Wigan. I never got it when he was at Everton, and I still don't get it when he's at Belgium. I've watched every team that he's managed and coached, and he, as Dom says quite rightly, they do make themselves hard to play, and they do make themselves hard to beat Belgium. But I don't see, with the teams that he's had before, and it's 3 now that I've watched him, there doesn't ever seem like there's a direct plan with the team that he's managing. It seems very much like he's got an assortment of riches to manage at that national team at Belgium, and it's a shame that they haven't got further with what they got, because if that team clicked and gelled, it would be a team where they'd
be unstoppable.
Yeah, there should be already have a World Cup at least under
unstoppable.
But
then that's the difference. That's the difference between club and international football, isn't it? And by the time you get to a tournament in the summer, okay, the next World Cup will be a winter. those level of players have reached the final stages of the Champions League and played a lot of games, and a lot of the time they're knackered. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but that's obviously a topic for another day. Moving on, this is the West Midlands Podcast, part of your local TV. I'm Ben Ellis, Dom Phillips is with us, and Gavin Longthorne. Myself and Dom are Villa fans. We've just touched on that. Gav is a Wolves fan at Molineux on Saturday, 3-1 victory against Southampton. Wolves, for once, scoring a few goals, Gav.
Yeah, apart from the penalty which was given on VAR, which we just touched on as well from the Villa game on Monday night, two very well took goals. The Southampton free kick was, I'll be honest with you, I don't think there's anybody else in world football that's better at a dead ball free kick at the moment than Ward-Prowse. So I genuinely don't. I mean, I think you could have had 3 Jose Sars in that goal. They wouldn't have come near it. But just rewinding a bit and touching back on the game. It's very weird first half. I mean, I think Southampton had their fair share of chances as well as us. We had a couple of good, decent chances on the break as well. It seemed very much like a game where I think the first team scoring would dictate how it would have gone. I think us getting the first goal really give us that little bit of breathing space going into the second half. Obviously, Southampton are going to have to go for it a little bit more. Gives you a bit more freedom on the counter, gives you a bit more space, so they've got to commit more players forward. Max Kilman again played absolutely brilliant for us. I'm going to be completely honest with you now. I'm a diehard Wolves fan, but I hadn't even heard of the centre half that made his debut for us yesterday until the team sheet come through as someone that's been on loan at Grasshoppers in abroad, and he's come back for this month because they've had a winter break. So Bruno Larson or something there and give him a chance. And it was a solid debut. It didn't really have a lot to do, but it was a solid enough debut. Jose Sarr playing very well again, and Pedence shone like a star. I think him coming back is going to be a massive boost for us. I think the only problem is that we said earlier about players being injury prone. I think keeping him fit is going to be key for us. I think overall, I think we just about edged it as the better team. I think a lot of Southampton fans are going to argue the case because obviously they had that chance in the last minute as well when they made it 2-1, where I think the striker for them should have scored. I think if you're 6 yards out with the free header, I think really you should be at least getting it on target. It come off the post and the bar came out. And then obviously Adama Traore did his classic Adama Traore, missed an open goal from 5 yards out 90 seconds beforehand, and then had a counter attack and beat 2 players and put away a very composed finish afterwards, which I think if you ever want a clip to sum him up, I think that's what you'd show people. But yeah, it's a very, very, very decent result yesterday, and I think it keeps you up with that pace. Top 6 isn't an aim for me this season. I think it's a lot of, you've got to get used to the manager and the way that he wants the team to set out and play. And obviously you're seeing it now with this more offensive, quicker style of play that we spoke about last week. But I think there's nothing wrong with keeping the points ticking. Teams have got games in hand around it from COVID postponements as well. So as long as we keep picking up points and staying in the top half of the table, then I'm not going to be complaining. I'm not going to be complaining at all.
Thomas, we were talking, Gab and I, on the program last week in depth about things like Adama Traore. But before the game yesterday, I think it was for me it was the stat of the season in that Wolves have conceded fewer goals than any other team, with the exception of Manchester City. Yeah. But had scored fewer goals than any team, with the exception of Norwich. And I just wow. So it was nice to have got 3, and give the Wolves fans something to cheer about and to enjoy at Molineux.
It would have given the team confidence as well to put a few goals past someone. I watched Wolves against Man United, and while I didn't think Man United were really tough opponents, I thought Wolves played really well. I agree with a lot of Wolves fans' hype about Max Kilman. I know that he's sort of been in the club a couple of years after used to playing futsal, and he's sort of getting into the swing of it, and he's brilliant. Even on that right, I think he's left footed. He looks like he's right side of the 3. He looks fantastic. I think Semedo has much improved. When I first saw him play, I didn't think he was adapting to the league or something, but I really wasn't impressed with him, especially defensively. But I think under Lage, he's letting the wing-backs be a lot more offensive than they were under Nuno, and I think it's paying dividends for the team. Nuno's a fantastic player as well. Neves, unbelievable. They've got some brilliant players, but they've also got Podence, who I think is a really good trickster, but his end product sometimes lacks for me. Same with Traore to a really crazy extent. So I think the Wolves have got a lot to be excited about. They've got a decent manager, they've got some decent players, but and the difference probably that, I don't really like comparing clubs, but to talk about Wolves and Villa is that Villa go into the transfer market and buy top quality players for lots of money, and Wolves' ownership don't do that. You see multiple players, staff in the recruitment department leave over the past few years. The owners sort of doing their own thing and bringing in players that, bluntly, no one's ever really heard of. So I think if Wolves want to sort of keep the manager happy, if other clubs come calling, and keep the players happy if other clubs come calling, and keep the results up, they've got to dip into they've got to spend some money, and I just don't know why they aren't, to be honest.
I think this is what we were speaking about.
We talked about it last week. We think that reading between the lines, Wolves might be a bit concerned about FFP and the sort of the outlay and wages that they were spending during the European campaign. I think they're just kind of consolidating as far as now is concerned, because they've got the clout. As we said, it's not Chelsea, Man City, or even Newcastle kind of money, but they can compete.
I think this is it, isn't it, Ben? I think, like I said last week, I think if the right player does come available, Dom, I think they will sign him. But I think they're being very conservative on how they're spending the money now, especially because he's starting to look like he's improving now, Fabio. So come on again, it was only 5 minutes, but he looked towards the player he did last season in 5 minutes. Done more than 5 minutes than he did the whole last season when he come on yesterday. And as he said, Semedo, that he doesn't get a lot of credit this season as well, because I think a lot of the emphasis has gone on Kilman in that back five, but I think that he has come on leaps and bounds this season. Looks a lot more defensively sound now. It seems like he doesn't get sucked in quite a lot, like a lot of fullbacks do, where they get that trait where they seem to get sucked in towards the back three or the back two. I think the manager did go there, and I think he's even now. I think he's still got that promise of players that he wants. I think the one player that he really wanted the last transfer window, which is who we ideally needed, was someone like Renato Sanchez. I think we still need someone like that now, that busybody in the middle of the park that can give you that little extra man and more room in the middle of the park to maybe give the attacking players more license of freedom as well, because I think going forward, he doesn't want to play a back five. I think even now, I personally think if it works, carry on playing it. But I think the manager has got his mindset on the back four just to give the team a bit more of an attacking edge. And as you said, I don't think we're going to be doing a lot this transfer window. I think we're on the verge of signing a winger from Portugal. He's having his medical tomorrow called, I'm going to butcher the name here. I think it's Chiquinho for Estoril in Portugal. I think that's more of an eye on the future. I don't think he's going to be coming in and playing many first team games for this season, especially. So I think, as I said, going back to the original point, it's more of a case of as Ben says, being very careful with FFP. I don't think they want to foul that, because I think it will be taking them 2 steps back, as we see with a lot of clubs. If you fail it really puts those chains back on you again, where you can't go out and sign who you want to sign again. It gives you that step back. So I think as long as they're on the right track and you're keeping players, like we're getting a lot out of Martino. I thought he was going to be gone in the summer. I think he's very key. He didn't get a lot of praise yesterday again, but I think he had a very good game again, like he did against Man United. So I think it's a case of watch this space with Wolves very much, but I think there's not going to be a lot of activity this window, maybe the next one.
No, one last thing on Wolves, Gav. It was mentioned a little earlier. Adama Traore getting the third goal for Wolves. As he celebrated the goal, I looked at it. I didn't see a player who looked like he was waving goodbye. And there's still sort of 2 weeks to go. That link with Spurs is still there. We talked about it briefly last week, but what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. I'll be quite honest with you, Ben. The way we spoke last week, it looked like it was a very high possibility he was going to be gone by this show tonight. It still could be the case. As you said, the celebrations as of the wars, I always like to look when players are celebrating, because it does give you a good indication, the whole team when they're celebrating, even the goalkeeper, which tells you that he's still very well loved at the place. you've got to look at it as well. Even if the player wants to stay there, I think sometimes it's a business point of view. I think we've offered him what they feel like they should be offering him at the moment in terms of wages and release clauses, etc., with an improved contract. And I think at the end of the day, they are assets to the club. So if someone comes in and offers them a sizable fee, and it doesn't look like he's going to put pen to paper, they may have to initiate it. But the annoying thing is with Traore, as I said, if you want a clip to sum him up, that was it yesterday again. Missing from 5 yards out from an open goal and then going and putting that goal away, which is as composed as you can come. A lot of number 9s will be proud of that goal, the way that he took it away yesterday. But I think that's it with him. I think it's just the annoying thing is he's got it in him, but just that little bit of composure just isn't always there. I think there's a vast riches of talent in that footballer, but it's just the annoying part of it is that flicking that switch to turn on the composure side of it. But going back to the original point, I genuinely don't know. If I'm going to be honest with you, it'd be interesting to get yours and Dom's point of view from a neutral. You've saw these little mini transfer sagas happen before. What would you say come 31st of January? Where would you personally think that Adama Traore is going to be?
Dom?
Prediction-wise, I don't know. Would I cash in on him for the rumoured 50 million so he can go to Tottenham and try out as a wing-back and probably not do that well?
No, he's been there with us. It's I think
it doesn't work.
Tried him.
He can't defend, can he? And
no.
He's a great. I like Adama in the sense that he's got such skill as well. People talk about his pace, and he's the quickest player you'll ever watch, but he genuinely does have a really good ability to dribble. He can put a decent ball in. Him and Jimenez's link up used to be quite good. I think Jimenez has been the same to the injury quite naturally, but I just think I would cash in on him. I think you've got other players. I think Neto coming back is going to be huge for you if you can keep him fit. I think he's one of the best players in the league, if I'm being honest. Trincao will come good, I think, but whether that'll come good this season, I don't know. Podence, you've got, Hwang is like not getting loads of minutes now. You've got players in the depth, you've got attacking depth. I think you can definitely afford to let him go, personally. And that's probably what I'd would, whether he actually will or not. Whether Antonio Conte is able to get a deal done for someone like Tariq Lamptey, I'm not sure. What do you think, Ben?
Well, I just think about Adama Traore. We saw the raw kid, didn't we? In that sort of that season, we went down and thinking, well, if he just develops a bit of a football brain and a bit of nous, I mean, you could have a hell of a talent on your hands here. I just feel, and I mentioned this last week, that we probably should have seen that by now, consistently at Wolves. And I think 50 million, when we were talking 30 for Ollie Watkins about 20 minutes ago, 50 million for Adama Traore, who's not guaranteed to give you exactly what you're looking for week in, week out. Oh, yes, snap the hand off.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 50 million, any day.
Yeah, but it's a case of as well, which is... it's the frustrating thing as well. Someone come out with a good point I was speaking to yesterday about it with the game. Even though he doesn't have that composure and final product, the annoying thing is if we let him go, even though he doesn't start every game, I don't think there's anybody else at the moment that can do what he can for us. I don't think there's any other player that can do something similar like him. I know it's frustrating at times where he comes on or he starts games, he doesn't show it, but he has that ability to win you a game out of nothing even now. I mean, before yesterday, he hadn't made an assist or scored a goal in any competition for us this season, which is talking about the goal scored and for ratio. I think that's a pretty damning stat for someone with his ability, really, even if he doesn't show it all the time. You thought by now he would have at least done that once this season, but even then, flipping it's I'm very conflicted with it, if I'm going to be honest with you, because I think the frustrating thing for me would be is if we did let him go to Spurs, and he did finally fulfill his potential, and he looked like a world beater, I'd be thinking, well, why couldn't he have done that for us then? Or why didn't we keep him and do that? But this is hindsight, isn't it?
Something cost fallacy in it, I think.
Yeah, this is it. I think this is why, if we all had hindsight, we wouldn't be doing this, going to work on our day jobs. We'd all be multi-millionaires with winning the lottery 50 times by now. So that's the thing. I think that's with football. That's a risk you got to take sometimes.
And just finally, on Wolves Brentford away, on Saturday, I would imagine, Gav, a chance to right the wrong from what was probably the worst performance of the season for the Wolves.
Yes, I don't think you need to do the team talk with that one. I think it does it for itself. I mean, they were a bit of an unknown entity when they first come the first half of the season, Brentford, and I think they had that where you see it, they had that enthusiasm and bounce from just being newly promoted as well. So I think they come there and caught us a bit cold that day, even though we were very poor that day. As you said, probably the worst performance for the Large so far. But they've got a lot to fight for as well. I mean, they're still looking over the shoulder as well. Brentford, it can go very bad very quickly. So I think we're going to go there, and I think they're going to make it very tough for us to play football. I mean, we do seem to have a bit more free-flowing football away from home for some reason, even now. So you would hope to go there and give them a game, but at the same time, they're going to make it very hard for us.
Okay. Moving into the Championship now on the West Midlands podcast. The two clubs, we could just play a tape with a loop of the issues. Because we talked about it last week. West Brom just don't do the business at all. Away at QPR, coming away with a sort of a 1-0 defeat. What I would focus on here with West Brom is that they are not picking up points against the teams in and around them in the Championship. Now, that has to be a concern.
Yeah.
I mean, if Jonathan was with us, he'd probably give us the full picture, of course. But they're not even talking now. When you listen to Albion fans and you read what they say on Twitter, they're not even talking about automatic promotion anymore. They're talking about clinging on to a playoff place. Well,
this is it, isn't it? I was just about to say they seem to be really dangerously sleepwalking even out of the playoff race now. I think it's always the case. I think it would have been good money to put him on scoring yesterday as well against West Brom. It's typical that it happens in that fashion, but it's from what I've heard, it was a very disappointing performance again. We spoke about it last week. Talked about Martinez, but he's in the same mould for me. I just don't get it. I don't get the manager. I don't get what he's trying to do there. Just don't see a plan when I watch West Brom this season. And as you said last week, it is frustrating for me because they are our rivals at the end of the day from putting my Wolves hat on. But I would love to live in a time again where you've got all four of the teams in the Midlands in the Premier League and we're having these great derby days again. But for me, I think they've got the wrong head coach in there even now still, and I think these 2 or 3 players short, well, at least 2 or 3 players short. Especially for an automatic promotion race as well. It just seems like the thing is, what you've got to watch as well, Ben, is that you look at teams like Fulham, and they seem to be able to find a way to outplay teams and have the players to do it as well. And there's no reason why West Brom can't do that. It just seems like a lot of bad decisions were made in the close season. I think they're seeing the results of that now.
But I think what they need to get their heads around is that okay, not every team in the Championship can be like Fulham, and on more than one occasion put 7 past the team, which is what they've done.
Oh yeah. I mean,
not every team can do that. Not every team can do that. So you don't necessarily have to be like that. But give the example. I mean, Blackburn were one of those teams that Fulham hammered by 7. I think they're pretty much unbeaten since then under Tony Mowbray, and they're very close to the top of the table. Bournemouth are sort of there or thereabouts as well. You know, if you've got a plan and you've got an identity and showing your supporters what you're about. I've said many a time on this podcast, I've been to quite a few Albion games to commentate for the radio. I've watched them on TV. They're on TV practically every Friday night. You know, somebody at Sky thinks we want to watch West Brom. I don't know what that, but they seem to be on all the time. And I just cannot work it out. Are they a pressing team? Are they a passing team? Are they a long ball team? Some teams are, and they're not ashamed to admit that they are. I don't see what the plan is with West Bromwich Albion.
Definitely. I think I misconstrued what I said. Really, obviously, I don't think they're going to be going to Blackburn and winning 7 or 8-0. But I mean, with Fulham, you can see what they're trying to do, and you know how they're trying to win a football game, but you don't see it with West Brom. Even with Bournemouth, I think Scott Parker's got them set up very well. But you can see what they're trying to do. Let's
put this into some kind of context, and I don't care if Albion fans are annoyed at this. They wouldn't be annoyed at me saying this. They're annoyed at the situation. If West Bromwich Albion tomorrow signed Mitrovic from Fulham, he would not get 25 goals a season.
No. Spot on. It's the manager. I agree with what both of you two are saying. The top teams in the Championship play a certain way. Norwich have done that year in, year out. Fulham are brilliant, you know. And West Brom just don't have a way of playing. I think the manager, Ismail, had everything he had at Barnsley. The club was perfectly set up all around. Everything was around him and what he did with them. And he just has that so much expectation now for West Brom. At Barnsley, when he brought them up, he was expected to go down. But because he did well, everyone's like, oh, he's done brilliant. Well, he did a good job there. But sometimes I think when you go to a bigger club like West Brom, you've got much more pressure, much more expectations. You've got different set of players. I know he's brought in Alex Moa and now Daryl Dike, who I do actually think is a good signing for them, in fairness. I just don't think it's enough. They don't have a set way of playing. They don't look well coached at all. They look like a Roberto Martinez team. They look like a Steve Bruce. They look like a Rafa Benitez team of recently. And it's a shame to see, because they should be doing a lot better than they are. I imagine the Baggies fans are absolutely livid with what they're seeing from their club.
I'll say what I said last week. I still think it's absolutely criminal that they didn't convince Chris Wilder to take that job. I think he would have been the ideal fit. I just do not get what they saw in the goal.
I just think the board assumed that they'd yo-yo, like they have done.
Yeah.
You know,
I just think
they,
the board
they go up, Norwich come down.
To be honest, yeah,
it's not a given, Ben. No.
But I think they took the cycle of the last 3 or 4 seasons for granted. And I think, it doesn't matter who we get in, really, because we'll be there or thereabouts, because we've just come down from the Premier League and we've kept the vast majority of our players. Kept the vast majority of players because they're rubbish and nobody wants them.
Oh, yeah.
That's
this
a fact.
Is what we said as well last week, with the greatest respect to the manager and, to an extent, a lot of the players that they've got there. If they did come straight back up, speaking hypothetically, even now, if they did still come back up, I think they'd be back at square one again as well. Or, with the greatest respect, I don't think Alex Mowatt's going to boss a midfield for you in the game in the Premier League. I just really don't. I think, a couple of the players now, they've been there and done it. They've had the time, a couple of them as well. And I just think that even if they do get promoted, they'd have to look for a new head coach. And I think that they would desperately need a new spine in that team, or I really do.
Yeah. Moving on to Birmingham City, it's not much better for Blues, but they did come away from Deepdale with a point on Saturday. A late equaliser from Scott Hogan, returning to some form of fitness. They've obviously missed him, and if the situation's right, which again we give the Villa example where it wasn't for Scott Hogan in the Championship, Scott Hogan will get you goals. And I think as we talked last week, Gav, and I'll bring Dom in on this now, they've probably got enough in the bank in terms of points to steer clear of the relegation. So in many ways, there's nothing we can kind of add to this discussion about Birmingham City per se. But the interesting thing that came out of the Championship on Saturday is 4 or 5 clubs are under investigation by the EFL for mismanagement of funds, Middlesbrough being one of them. Derby have been slapped under another transfer embargo. Now, the EFL have made no secret over the last couple of years that they've got certain clubs on their radar, and Birmingham City is one of them. So, this is where I feel sorry for Blues fans, in that that the EFL are after them, and you do feel kind of like you're the victims of the owners, and you're the victims of the EFL as well, who are after you, and you're kind of stuck in it like piggy in the middle, and all you want to see is your team give you everything that they've got on a Saturday for you, and you'll kind of put up with the rest of it. But they've been at it for so long now that they're just circling the drain, going through the motions, and eventually, unless something changes, which it never looks like it's going to happen, they're going to fall through the gap.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, you look back at it and you think, look, as you said, how much that they've been through the past, well, it seems like forever now. When does the flicker of flame come to the stick of dynamite? I think this is a dangerous part now. I think it's you could put good money that they are one of those 5 clubs, because I think it's always going to be that little thing hanging over them where I don't think they've ever not been under the radar. I think they're always going to have one eye on them. From a football sense, I mean, yesterday was, look, if they're in that position, Blues, I think getting a point away from home, they're going to snatch your hands off just to keep the points board ticking over. With everything else going on off the field, I really don't think they want a relegation battle thrown into the mix as well. Even though, as you say, the touch wood, they should have enough in the bank. But we can see how quickly it can turn in that league, upwards or downwards. I mean, a run of 5 bad games can put them straight back into it. I think they've got to be very shrewd in the next 2 weeks of the window as well. I think they need to bring in 1 or 2 more players, really. It looks like it's going to be, as I said last week, it's probably going to be a loan signing or a free agent of some kind to bring in to give them something different in that squad to keep the points ticking over. I don't know how true it is, but they're still being linked now with Amad Diallo on loan from Man United. So I think that wouldn't be a bad bit of business at all. I think it'd give them something different that they haven't got at the club. But it's not a bad result yesterday. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a hard place to go to. Every place in that league's a hard place to go to. So as I said, if you're in that situation, not Blues are in, they'll snatch your hands off and they'll run back onto the coach home and they'll be back home as quick as they can. But as you say, yeah, Scott Hogan coming back and keeping that the fitness, because he has had some really torrid fitness issues the past couple of seasons. There is a 20-goal a season striker in there even still now for that league. So keep him fit and he will get you out of danger. But at the same time, it's not you're not worrying times now, but I think you still fear for them in a sense. Definitely.
Yeah, Barnsley at home on Saturday, obviously right bottom of the table, Barnsley, and if they were to win on Saturday, Dom, it would take them 12 points clear of the bottom 3, and so they would just have that little bit of breathing space if the EFL are up to the whole tricks. And we're not suggesting for a minute that is the case. It's just that we know where these things have gone in the past. So anybody tuning in now thinking that the EFL are going to slap another points deduction on Birmingham City, we're not saying that, of course. Yeah. We just know that we've been there before, and that the EFL are clamping down on a lot of things that they perceive to be irregular. One of the places they're going to look, because they've been there before, would probably be Birmingham City. So I think we should just quantify that. There's nothing been reported that says Birmingham City are in any danger of a transfer embargo or having points taken from them. But if all you've got to look forward to, Dom, as a fan, is to think that we're not going to get points taken off us, all that stuff week in, week out over 46 games.
It's depressing, and it's a very long time. 46 game season. I think Birmingham are in a bit of stasis, to be honest. I think they're relying on loans from Manchester United and Taden Mengi and Amad Diallo potentially to sort of try and get them out of the woods. They've got a couple of okay players, but they've got some players that I think are really uninspiring. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not exactly a Birmingham City expert. If Blues fans want to stack me off for this, then fair play. But I'm not convinced by Lee Bowyer. I think he did a decent job at Charlton. I think he's a bit of a strong, ruthless character. But I think tactically, it doesn't work. I know that they'll say, they've had people like Karanka who tried to play good football, but they've never had both. They've never had a manager with the right character and the right way of thinking about football. And I don't think Lee Bowyer is the long-term answer for them. I think he'll get results, and you might finish in the 15th to 18th sort of that sort of region of the Championship every season. You might have early season where you go, we might get the playoffs, then have a little scare where you might go down. But I just really don't think that club is heading in a great direction. I agree with what you say. They've all long been rumoured to have things going on behind the scenes. And if the EFL want to be a bit proactive, which we know they can be, then that could spell a lot of problems for Birmingham City. So you just don't know what the future holds for them. And to be honest, as a Blues fan, anything could happen. And that's a really bad thing in football, if you ask me.
Absolutely. Just want to turn to one of the big stories nationally in the 5 minutes that we've got left. Obviously, I'm sure this will be talked more on the Box to Box podcast, which will stream on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter on Tuesday. But the cancellation, the postponement of the North London derby at the request of Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. this is disgraceful, quite frankly,
pretty
and quite simply because there is only confirmed. I don't know if there's been more on this today, but as I saw at the time of the postponement, there was only one confirmed COVID case at Arsenal. And then they've thrown into the mix, we've got injuries, we've got players away at the African Cup of Nations. So we can't put a team out.
And the player that you loaned out to AS Roma.
Yeah, you just loaned out 2 first-team squad members.
Yeah.
You can't have both ways.
Where's this? I thought that they gave them license to play. I thought that the waived the registration process or whatever it was, so they could start playing under 21 players now. I think that's the whole. That isn't that the end game of having these youth systems as well.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a case of if you give people an inch, they're going to take a mile. I think you're going to see a lot of this now for the rest of the season. I think if managers think that the schedule's a bit too tight, they're going to try and find loopholes to not play these games, which is unfortunate because I was really looking forward to watching that game today. I think it would have been a really good game of football because I think there's 2 teams there that really are gunning for that top 4.
You know what sticks in the throat about what you just said there, Gavin? And I'm not saying you're wrong in any stretch of the imagination. After next weekend's fixtures in the Premier League, there's a 2-week break. And Arsenal are now out of the FA Cup.
Well, this is it, isn't it?
Nottingham Forest.
Why we're still even adhering to this winter break. I mean, this is the ridiculous thing, Ben. We've got a cup game against Norwich when we come back from that on the 5th of February. And then I know the Europa League play these games on this night, so no disrespect to any team that are in it, but why have they rearranged the game for Thursday night against Arsenal, the 28th? Cancellation, I just don't get that. I think it's fast called that even now we're still adhering to that winter break. I think, didn't they say exceptional circumstances mean exceptional exceptions a couple of weeks ago with stuff like this with COVID? So why isn't that being looked into more as a cancellation possibility?
Exactly. Dom, I don't know about you. Arteta had no intention of fielding a team at Tottenham.
No, I completely agree. I think you'll look for loopholes you'll get loopholes when you look for them, and I think that's exactly what they do. He didn't want to play the game. He didn't have his best 11 in his own view, and teams are doing that now. And the worst thing is it sets a precedent because this issue has been bubbling up and gradually getting worse and worse, and we're just going to see it left, right, and centre now, regardless of winter break. Teams going, I don't have my exact first team. Let's just cancel the game and play when we do, and it's disastrous. I'd penny for the thoughts of all those youth players who spend every single hour of every single day working to get a chance to be on the bench in a Premier League game, or not even to get on the bench, to travel on the coach. And they dream of that, and they work all their time for that. And their first team managers who, the clubs who pump millions into the academy system, Class A, whatever, Group A, best academies in the, all supposed to produce brilliant players in England, and they can't get a look in, and it's disgraceful. It just completely damages the integrity of the Premier League, damages the integrity of the people, the managers, the people behind the Premier League. And as a fan, it's just quite sickening to see, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that you can't change the rules now, sort of mid-season. You have to go with what you set out with, sort of at the start of the season. But Gav, did you see next season the Premier League getting together and saying, right, you register 35 as opposed to, what is it, 25 at the moment as your squad, 30 to 35, and if you can't field a team, then we'll look at it. But
this is it, isn't it? I mean, I think I think something's got to definitely be looked into for next season if the same protocols are going to be in place in terms of COVID testing and cancellations. I mean, I know this thing with 5 subs is being bandied around a lot, but that's not going to solve the issue if teams are saying I haven't got enough players to field in the first place. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when a lot of these games aren't being played and we're coming to the crunch time of the season and we've got this World Cup scheduled for another winter break.
They're not going to be able to do it. They're not, a team's at the World Cup next year going to say, "Oh no, we can't field."
Exactly.
Even though we picked a squad of 22 and every single one involved can be involved on a match day, well, there's still a problem here. We might not be able to play this World Cup game, and really want to.
That won't happen though, because this is the Premier League. That's the difference, I think.
Yeah.
This is the incompetency of the Premier League.
But then again, it's the inconsistency, and yes, it was a long, long time ago. We're talking 25 years now. Brian Robson, manager of Middlesbrough at the time, felt he couldn't field a team at Blackburn, so he didn't turn up. They were docked 3 points, were Middlesbrough, and went down by 3 points that season. So the Premier League was strong enough, maybe because it was Middlesbrough. It was little old Middlesbrough, even though they were spending a lot of money. And the sad thing as well, it's the foreign managers who are doing the whinging. You know, and it's like, and I don't want to come across as kind of like grouchy or even xenophobic or anything, but you want to earn a living here, you want to play the game here, then stop your moaning, get on with it. We play football over Christmas. You've got a break, which we didn't have before. That's only coming in sort of the last couple of years or so. Get on with it.
Well, it's got to be something that's took into account at the start of the season, especially when you're taking these jobs as well. I mean, it's synonymous around the world that you have that Boxing Day and Christmas schedule in the Premier League. I think it's a lot of fans' highlights over the season as well. I think it's definitely something that's going to be really dug into in the close season, because I think they're going to have to come up with a solution to do it, because I don't think this is going to be able to be feasible next season again, especially from the start. This is only coming from, remember, this has only started midway through this season as well, so we'll watch this space, I suppose.
Yeah, for goodness sake, vaccinate the players. It's got to be the way to look at it. But we have reached the end of our time on the West Midlands Football Podcast. We'll be back next Sunday, streaming across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The Box to Box Podcast will be looking at things from a national perspective on Tuesday evening. We just like to say thank you for joining me, Ben Ellis, Tom Phillips, and Gavin Longthorne. Enjoy your football over the next 7 days, and we will see you next Sunday.